Good morning. This video here is our last video for our radical unit. Hope you had a nice weekend, enjoyed some sunshine, maybe some lightning, maybe some rain. We had a little bit of everything this weekend. So it was a true Calgary weekend for weather. So lesson 5 here is called solving radical equations. Now, this is very similar, the steps that we go through, to when we would solve equations that didn't have a radical. Okay, so it's very similar in that sense. There's just a few different steps. Okay, so when we're trying to solve a radical equation, in other words, if we look at A here, this is the square root of x equals 7. If we're solving this, that means we're trying to find out what does x actually equal. Okay, so this is now where we're moving things across the equal sign, trying to get x alone, and then solving for x. Okay, so our normal steps are always isolate for x, and then once x is isolated, we know what it is. We do this in a similar way now, except for first we need to isolate the radical. Okay, so if there's a number beside the radical, we need to move the number away so the radical is on its own. So that's step 1. After we isolate for the radical, we have to square both sides to get rid of the radical, right? Because square root and squaring something are opposite. Just like cube root and cubing something are opposite. Okay, so if it's a square root, we have to square it. If it's a cube root, we have to cube it. Okay, so that's step 2. Step 3, we're going to solve just like a regular equation then, and then 4 is our check. Okay, so we're going to verify all answers, checking for extraneous roots. That basically means sometimes we might get an answer that's not actually true. So this is where we plug it in to the original equation to see if it's actually true. Okay, so let's look at example A here. It says the square root of x is 7. Step 1 is to get the radical alone. Well, the radical is already alone, so step 1 is done. There's nothing beside it. Step 2 is to square both sides. So we're going to square this side, and squaring the radical is going to get rid of the radical. Okay, 7 squared is 49. So that's our answer. We solved the resulting equation. Finally, let's do a check to make sure this works. So to do that, we take x and we plug in our answer. So we have 49 equals 7 and 7 equals 7. So this is where we could even say left side equals right side. Okay, good. Look at a second example here. So now this one, we have to do a step 1. It says isolate the radical. The radical here is not alone. There's a 4. The 4 is multiplying by the radical, so we need to do the opposite. We need to divide both sides by 4. To isolate x, we have the square root of x is equal to 2. And now we can go to step 2, which is square both sides. So we're going to square this side, square this side. We've got x equals 4, and it's solved. Okay, let's do a check here. So we've got 4 times the square root of 4 is equal to 8. Square root of 4 is 2, so we have 4 times 2 equals 8, and 8 equals 8. So left side equals right side. So these are 2 very basic ones. Use this checklist to go through these examples. First we isolate, then we square both sides to get rid of the radical sign, and then we solve just like a regular equation. I'm going to do a few more videos here, increasing the complexity.